Hi everyone, my name is Anna Markin, and this is my video response to This American Life podcast. This is the problem we all live with, part 1 and part 2. So to begin, to discuss some thoughts and experiences I had while listening to the podcast and how they differ, I was very honestly shocked and a little bit discouraged by hearing some of the parents during that school meeting that was held before the students came together when Normandy shut down. I was very shocked to hear some of the unfounded concerns and honestly racist ideas that a lot of the parents still held and were very publicly sharing in an open forum. Um, I live in Colorado where there's a lot of cultural diversity, particularly among like Caucasian people and Hispanic people, and I don't think anything like that would ever happen here, but I don't know now. Hearing some of those concerns that they were having about violence or drugs on campus just because some new students were coming in, I found very shocking. But I found part 2 to be very encouraging. I really loved the way that the school district handled that, especially the woman who was in charge of marketing, how positive and optimistic she was about the kind of presentation that magnet schools had to offer for the entire community. I thought that was really, really cool and encouraging. And I found out a lot of cool information about magnet schools. I grew up in a lot of small towns where that kind of educational stuff is not made available. So finding out about that, I was like, oh, I wish I had a magnet school I could have chosen from when I was young. I think that would have been really motivating, and the fact that it promotes integration just by on its natural basis is really, really cool too. Um, and the second question was, how does this information affect children in each circumstance and educational institutions? So I think that for the part 1, when the students who were originally in Normandy, I imagine that they were feeling very scared and probably really unwelcomed, especially after they heard what was happening basically within the community of the parents and teachers. Um, as the main girl pointed out that she was feeling, upset by what she was hearing. She wanted to go speak up for herself. It made her want to cry, and that was really heartbreaking to hear. And I imagine she wasn't alone in feeling that. But I can also imagine that she was incredibly enthusiastic to finally get good school, good curriculum, good foundation for her education, which had been lacking for so long. I imagine a lot of students were feeling a new sense of motivation. And then part 2, I think that students who are finally offered this magnet school opportunity probably are really, really excited about it. As I mentioned, I would have loved an opportunity to attend a magnet school when I was young. I was very arts focused, and I would have loved it if I could have attended a school that was also arts focused. And also, one of the main things that they were talking about was how magnet schools, you don't have to be compromised from what district you live in. That if your parents work in the city, you can also go to school in the city. So it kind of gives more opportunities, so you're not pigeonholed into any particular school system, which I think is a really awesome concept, and I wish was more open. See here. And the third question is, how is this topic a concern beyond something that should be handled in educational settings? I think this topic is a concern beyond schooling because it is something that follows you lifelong. Your education is your foundation and your backbone for other opportunities you're going to have in life. It's going to affect if you attend secondary school. It's going to affect if you want to do higher education. It affects how quickly you move into the occupational field, what type of jobs you choose, therefore what type of pay you're going to make. So honestly, I feel like it goes beyond the school system because the type of education and also the type of inclusion that you're exposed to is going to affect you the rest of your life. Especially if you come from a low income, and therefore lower opportunity neighborhood or community. So I think that more things can be done, maybe on a national or statewide policy level, maybe on a community outreach level to improve situations of inclusion and community and I guess basically like breaking down segregation in a community way to help promote a more balanced and equal opportunity educational setting or settings, whatever it might be. And finally, we were asked to look at the National Center of Education Statistics Board. As I mentioned before, I live in Colorado. I live in Jefferson County, which encompasses a lot of cities. It's actually a really big county. So I decided to specifically look into the schools in Lakewood, which is the neighborhood that I live in. And I was very surprised by a lot of the demographics. I knew that there was a really large Hispanic community and a really large Caucasian community. I was actually very surprised that there's a lot of, oh, sorry, let me look real quick. How are they categorized? So here, American Indian, Alaskan Native. There's actually quite a bit more than I originally thought. I never expected that high of a number. And also, in certain schools, there seems to be a fairly large Asian community too. I knew that there was a pretty prominent Vietnamese and Japanese community, but I didn't know that they were in my school district. So I thought that was pretty cool. And just looking through some of basically the high school demographics, a lot of these high schools are almost 50-50 between Hispanic and Caucasian, which I thought was really cool. So for instance, let me see here. So this is for Bear Creek High School, which is actually the high school where my mother-in-law lives next to. And the Hispanic population is 629 students, and the Caucasian students are 746. I thought that was really interesting. Like, that is basically right down the middle, 50-50, and then, as I mentioned, 120 Asian students. And I was like, oh, like, I didn't expect that to be so big. And so I think it was really informative to see how my school district is kind of represented through its students. I think that explains why we have such a big bilingual community. I think why so many students in my young people in my community are bilingual, and also why we have such a multicultural, multicultural opportunities around. There's a lot of heritage centers, there's a lot of art centers, there's a lot of Mexican and other Hispanic cultural centers as well, and I find it all really interesting, and it all kind of paints a better picture of what's in my community. So I really enjoyed listening to the podcast. I love This American Life, and I really enjoyed taking one of my favorite podcasts and applying it to this week's lesson. So thank you for listening, and take care.